Ember sat in the back corner of his cage, black as a moonless night, with eyes the color of warm honey. He did not hiss. He did not cry. He simply watched the door the way he had watched a different door for 4 years. His first owner had been an old fisherman named Samuel, a man who raised him from a kitten on a quiet dock at the edge of town. Ember knew the creak of Samuel's boots. He knew the smell of salt on his hands. He knew the exact hour each evening when dinner arrived, without fail. Then one October morning, the boots did not come. Neighbors called the shelter. The intake sheet said only this: black long hair, approximately 4 years old, prior owner deceased. Nobody wrote down that he was gentle. Nobody wrote down that he was grieving. If stories like this one sit heavy in your chest, stay with us. And if you want to keep hearing about the ones nobody else stopped for, hit subscribe now. There are so many more waiting to be told. The first few nights at the shelter, Ember refused to eat. He sat facing the wall of his cage, the way animals do when they are still waiting for a door that will never open again. A volunteer left a soft blanket folded near his paws, hoping the smell of something warm might reach him before words could. The staff liked Ember well enough, but they were honest with each other, the way shelter workers learn to be. A big black cat, even a friendly one, is a hard placement. Some visitors walked straight past his cage without slowing down. One woman crossed to the other side of the room, murmuring something about bad luck under her breath. A teenager overheard a family joke that black cats belong in horror movies, not living rooms. Ember did not understand the words. He only understood the shape of them. People who looked, then quickly looked away. Weeks passed, then months. He grew thin around the face, the way cats do when grief settles into the body instead of just the mind. Staff moved him to a quieter kennel near the back, the one reserved for cats who had been there the longest. They gave him extra time outside his cage each afternoon, though he rarely used it. Mostly he just sat by the window watching cars pass that never stopped. 90 days is considered a long stay for any shelter cat. Ember passed that mark without a single serious inquiry. An old superstition, it turned out, was doing exactly what old fears do. It was costing him a home. The town had an old habit of blaming black cats for things that had nothing to do with them. A missing chicken, a bad harvest, a run of poor luck at the docks. Nobody could say where the belief started, only that it had outlived 3 generations and showed no sign of leaving with this one. Ember, of course, knew none of this history. He only knew that the hands that reached toward other cages never quite reached toward his. Walter was 61, a retired carpenter who had built half the porches in town. His wife, Ruth, had died the previous spring after 40 years of marriage. The house had gone quiet in a way no radio could fill. His daughter Claire suggested a cat gently more than once. Walter always said the same thing: I don't need a cat, I need Ruth back. Claire stopped pushing after a while, though she still called every Sunday, worried by the silence on the other end of the line. But grief wears a person down eventually, until they try something, anything, just to make the silence bearable. He walked into the shelter on a gray Tuesday with no real plan, just an itch he couldn't explain. A volunteer, sensing something in his tired eyes, mentioned the cat in the back. He's a good boy, she said carefully. People just don't give him a chance because of the color. Walter shrugged and said he would take a look. He found Ember facing the wall, exactly as he had for 90 days. Walter did not tap the glass. He crouched down slowly, the way he used to kneel to inspect a beam before trusting it with weight. I'm not here to judge you, fella, he said quietly. Ember turned his head. Those golden eyes found Walter's face and held it, steady, unblinking, the way a cat looks only at someone it has already decided to trust. Walter felt something crack open in his chest that had stayed sealed since the funeral. I'll take him, he said. The volunteer blinked, surprised. Nobody had ever asked for that cat before, not once, not in 3 months. I see you still haven't hit subscribe. Honestly, that stings a little. If stories like Ember's mean something to you, the button is right there. The first weeks in Walter's house moved slowly. Ember explored room by room, the way you test ice before trusting it to hold your weight. He slept on the guest room floor. He ate quietly, then disappeared again, always keeping one wall between himself and whatever might come next. Walter did not push. He left food where Ember could find it. He kept the lights low in the evenings. He played Ruth's old records, the ones he used to hear her humming along to in the kitchen, letting the same songs fill the same rooms again. On the 10th night, Walter sat in his armchair by the window, not reading, just sitting with the ache that never fully left. He felt the cushion shift. Ember had jumped up beside him, not touching him. Just close, both of them facing the same dark window. Neither of them moved for a long time. It became a ritual after that. The same chair, the same quiet, every evening. Ember began following Walter from room to room, never demanding, simply present. He learned the sound of the truck in the driveway and waited by the door before Walter even turned the key. If Walter sat too long without moving in the mornings, Ember would climb onto the armrest and rest his chin against his shoulder. A small, deliberate weight that seemed to say, you are still here. So am I. Some mornings, that reminder mattered more than Walter could put into words. He started talking to Ember the way some people talk to an old friend, telling him about the porch he was building down the street. Or a joke Ruth used to laugh at every single time, even after 30 years. When Claire visited that spring, she stood in the doorway and just stared for a moment. Her father was on the floor, laughing, dragging a shoelace across the rug while a black cat swatted at it with total seriousness. Dad, she said, you're smiling. Walter looked up. Yeah, he said, I suppose I am. After that day, Claire started visiting more often. Sometimes just to sit in the kitchen with a cup of coffee while Ember dozed on the windowsill behind her. She never said it directly, but Walter could tell she came a little more easily now. the way people do when a house feels less like a place to check on and more like a place they actually want to be. Ember climbed into her lap too eventually, though it took him a few more months to trust her the way he had already trusted Walter. If that made you feel something. You are not the only one. Ruth had always been afraid of storms, the kind that rattled the windows and made the whole house feel smaller. Walter used to sit up with her on those nights, saying nothing, just staying close until the thunder passed. He hadn't thought about those nights in a long time, not until a summer storm rolled in that July and Ember appeared at his side before the first crack of thunder even hit. He pressed against Walter's leg and stayed there unmoving, until the sky went quiet again. Walter sat very still for a moment, then he laughed softly and said, "You didn't even know her, how do you know to do that?" Ember only blinked, slow and steady the way he always did. One night in late winter, Walter woke to a strange, insistent sound. Ember was standing on his chest, meowing sharply again and again, refusing to stop. Walter sat up, confused, then he smelled it before he understood it. Smoke, thin, but unmistakable, drifting in from the kitchen. A frayed cord behind the old stove had begun to smolder. Walter moved fast, cutting the power, opening windows, catching it before it became something worse. The fire department told him later that another 20 minutes could have told a very different story. Walter sat on the kitchen floor afterward, hands still shaking. Ember climbed straight into his lap, pressing his full weight against him the way he never had before. Walter wrapped both arms around him and said the only word that felt big enough: "Thank you." Word got around the neighborhood fast. Even the woman who once crossed the street to avoid him started leaving treats on his porch, quietly like an apology she never said out loud. The vet who examined Ember afterward, just to be safe, said his lungs were clear and his heart rate was strong. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, that in 20 years of practice she had never seen a cat wake a sleeping owner quite that fast. Walter just nodded. He already knew. The volunteer who had once called him a good boy nobody gave a chance heard the whole story a few weeks later, from a neighbor who stopped by the shelter just to say thank you. She kept a small note about it pinned above her desk, right next to the intake sheet that once read only 4 cold lines about a grieving cat. She still thinks about him on slow afternoons, especially when another black cat sits quietly in the back, facing the wall the way Ember once did. Now she makes a point of telling every visitor his story first, before they even reach the cage. Ember is older now, curled every night on the pillow that used to be Ruth's. Walter still talks to him the way he once talked to Ruth about his day. Ember still answers with that same steady, golden gaze. Some people spend a lifetime believing a black cat brings misfortune into a house. Walter believes the opposite now. He believes Ember carried him through the hardest winter of his life and then, without being asked, kept the house from burning down around him. Claire says it plainly now every time she visits. She says her father found more than a pet that gray Tuesday. He found a reason to keep the lights on. Love does not always announce itself with noise. Sometimes it sits quietly in the dark, waiting for someone patient enough to look past an old story and see what was actually there all along. If you are ever standing in front of a shelter cage and the only thing looking back at you is a black cat nobody else wanted, remember Ember. Sometimes the ones everyone else walks past are exactly the ones who end up saving you. Would you have looked past the color, or would you have kept walking like everyone else did? Tell me in the comments.